But the
Most
previous
people
chapter focused on
misunderstand
the
what
primary
intelligence
causes.
actually
Right,
is.
so if we
They
consider
think
the
it's
historical
measured by
context,
IQ
it's clear the
scores,
underlying
academic
factors were already in
achievements,
place.
degrees, or how quickly someone can answer difficult questions. But those things only measure a narrow form of ability. Real intelligence
Limited
is something
time
much
offer.
quieter
Buy
and
now.
much harder to fake. It is the quality
New message
of your
received.
thinking. Can you stay
Don't miss
clear-minded
out on the
when emotions are
savings.
high?
I told
Can
you this
question
strategy
an
wouldn't work
idea
in the long
everyone
term.
else
That's not
accepts
fair.
without
We didn't
automatically
anticipate the
following
sudden
the crowd?
changes. Yeah.
Can you separate
Regardless,
truth
we
from
need a
ego,
solution right
fear,
now.
distraction, or noise? That is the kind of intelligence that shapes real-life decisions. And unlike what most people believe, it is not fixed at birth. Intelligence is not something a few people are simply lucky enough to have. It is something built slowly through habits, awareness, and discipline. Highly intelligent people understand that the mind is fragile. The quality of thought can easily be damaged by emotional reactivity, constant distraction, overstimulation, and the endless pressure to react instantly to everything around you. So instead of only trying to become smarter, they focus on protecting the clarity of their thinking. They become careful about what captures their attention, what influences their emotions, and what quietly weakens their ability to reason clearly. Because intelligence is not just about what your brain can do. It is about how carefully you protect the way it works. And the people who think most clearly are often the people who learned exactly what habits they needed to stop feeding every single day. Most people believe intelligence is about having the right answers quickly. But some of the clearest thinking in life comes not from speed, but from the ability to pause. Something happens. A message arrives with the wrong tone. Someone criticizes you, a plan suddenly changes, and within seconds the emotional brain has already reacted. Anger rises. Fear appears. Defensiveness takes over. The body prepares an answer before the mind has fully understood the situation at all. Neuroscience explains this through two different systems operating inside the brain. The amygdala reacts first. It is fast, emotional,
It's been
automatic,
hard for everyone,
and designed for survival.
but
it
I
interprets
needed you to
emotional
understand
situations
why I
quickly
made that choice.
and pushes the body toward immediate action. But the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning, judgment, and long-term thinking, works differently. It is slower, calmer, and far more accurate. Highly intelligent people understand that the first emotional reaction is not always the truth. So instead of responding immediately, they wait long enough for the thinking brain to catch up. They know that emotions can distort perspective in powerful ways. The comment that felt insulting at midnight often feels harmless the next morning. The situation that seemed catastrophic during stress can look completely different once the nervous system settles. And that small pause between emotion and reaction
thought we agreed
is where
this time would be
intelligence
different.
quietly begins.
I know,
Not because
and
intelligent
I'm
people feel
trying,
less emotion,
but it's
because they
hard.
refuse to let temporary emotional intensity make permanent decisions for them. This becomes even more important during major life choices. Anger, grief, fear, loneliness, excitement, even hope can temporarily reshape reality in ways that feel absolutely convincing in the moment. A person quits a job during frustration, ends a relationship during fear, or makes reckless decisions during excitement because emotion creates the illusion of certainty. In emotionally charged moments, people often believe they are finally seeing clearly, when in reality, they are seeing through emotional weather. Highly intelligent people learn to recognize this feeling. They understand that temporary emotions often disguise themselves as permanent truth. So before making important decisions, they ask themselves a simple question. Will this still feel true when the emotional intensity has passed? If the answer is uncertain, they wait. Not forever, not out of fear, but long enough for clarity to return. Because emotional self-control is not suppression. It is not pretending not to feel. It is the ability to create enough space between feeling and action that reasoning has time to enter the conversation. And in a world that constantly rewards instant reactions, that ability has become increasingly rare. Real intelligence is not measured by how quickly someone reacts. It is measured by how carefully they choose which emotions deserve control over their decisions. Most people believe intelligence means finding answers quickly. A problem appears, and almost immediately the mind begins searching for solutions. It feels productive, decisive, efficient, but highly intelligent people understand something most others overlook. A fast answer is useless if the problem itself has been misunderstood. This is why so many solutions fail repeatedly in real life. People treat symptoms instead of causes. They fix surface conflicts while ignoring the deeper wound underneath them. Someone changes jobs without addressing the burnout pattern that follows them everywhere. Someone argues about small relationship issues while the real problem is emotional disconnection that neither person has fully named. The solution may sound intelligent, but if the diagnosis is wrong, the problem simply returns in a different form later. Highly intelligent thinkers resist the urge to rush toward answers because they understand that genuine understanding requires
The economic
patience,
impact cannot
and
be overstated.
patience is
We must consider the
uncomfortable.
long-term effects on the
Sitting with
labor market. But your projection
uncertainty
relies
feels
on a
slower than
fundamentally
taking
flawed
action.
premise
The
regarding
brain
automation.
naturally wants closure, movement, certainty. It wants to solve something quickly so it no longer has to tolerate confusion. But deep thinking often requires staying inside the confusion long enough to understand what is actually happening beneath the surface. Intelligent people ask different questions. Instead of immediately asking, "How do I fix this?" they first ask, "What exactly is this?" They observe patterns carefully. They examine causes before conclusions. They allow themselves time to fully understand the emotional, psychological, or practical structure of a problem before trying to solve it. This approach often looks slower from the outside, but in reality it produces far better outcomes. Because premature solutions create repeated problems. The same mistakes return again and again when the real issue was never understood clearly in the first place. There is a reason doctors diagnose before prescribing treatment. The same principle applies to every important area of life. Understanding must come before action. And in a culture obsessed with speed, quick opinions, and immediate answers, the ability to slow down and think deeply has become increasingly rare. Real intelligence is not the ability to react instantly to every problem. It is the ability to tolerate uncertainty long enough for clarity to emerge naturally. Modern life trains people to divide their attention constantly. A conversation interrupted by notifications. Work interrupted by messages. Videos playing while scrolling through something else at the same time. Most people call this multitasking and wear it like proof of efficiency, as if handling several things at once means the mind is operating at a higher level. But neuroscience shows something very different. Multitasking is largely an illusion. The brain is not truly focusing on multiple complex tasks simultaneously. It is rapidly switching between them, over and over again, paying a small cognitive price every single time attention moves. Psychologists call this switching loss. And although each switch feels small, the cost accumulates throughout the day in ways most people never notice consciously. Focus weakens. Thinking becomes shallower. Mental fatigue increases even when very little meaningful work has actually been completed. Highly intelligent people understand that attention is one of the most valuable resources the mind possesses, because the quality of thinking depends directly on the quality of attention supporting it. Deep reasoning, creativity, insight, and problem solving all require uninterrupted concentration over time. You cannot think deeply about something important while checking your phone every few minutes, or constantly splitting your awareness across multiple streams of stimulation. Real thinking requires stillness long enough for ideas to fully develop. But modern distraction conditions the brain toward the opposite. Every interruption teaches the nervous system to expect novelty constantly. Every quick scroll, notification, or rapid task switch trains attention toward fragmentation. Over time, the brain adapts to this pattern. Sustained focus begins to feel uncomfortable, silence feels empty, slow thinking feels boring. The mind becomes dependent on stimulation while losing its tolerance for depth. This is why so many people feel mentally exhausted despite spending entire days surrounded by information. The exhaustion is not always coming from effort itself. Often it comes from continuous cognitive fragmentation. The brain never fully settles into one task deeply enough to experience clarity or completion. Instead, attention remains scattered across dozens of unfinished mental threads at once. Highly intelligent people deliberately protect themselves from this. They understand that focus is not automatic. It is trainable, and whatever repeatedly captures attention slowly reshapes the structure of thought itself. So they create conditions that allow concentration to survive. They protect quiet. They reduce unnecessary distractions. They allow themselves periods of uninterrupted thinking, without constant stimulation, breaking the process apart. Because they understand something most people overlook. Depth requires duration. Insight does not emerge from fragmented attention. It emerges from sustained presence with a single thought long enough for the mind to move
You are
beyond
completely ignoring the
thinking.
facts. No, I'm not. Let me
In a world
finish.
constantly competing for attention,
This is exactly
the
what I was
ability to
talking
focus
about.
deeply
Nobody
has
listens.
quietly become one of the rarest forms of intelligence. Human beings naturally seek agreement. It feels comfortable to be surrounded by people who think the same way, share the same assumptions, and reinforce the beliefs we already hold. Agreement creates emotional safety because it protects the ego from discomfort and uncertainty. But highly intelligent people understand something dangerous about this comfort. The mind becomes weaker when it is never challenged. Psychologists call this the echo chamber effect. When every voice around you confirms what you already believe, your assumptions slowly harden into certainty. Blind spots remain invisible because nothing forces you to examine them closely. And over time, thinking becomes less flexible, less curious, and more emotionally reactive toward ideas that threaten existing beliefs. Intelligent people deliberately resist this trap. They seek perspectives that challenge them, not because disagreement feels pleasant, but because intellectual growth depends on friction. They understand that real clarity often comes from encountering information that disrupts certainty rather than protects it. Someone who never questions themselves may feel confident, but confidence and accuracy are not the same thing. Highly intelligent thinkers remain willing to reconsider, re-examine, and sometimes completely change their perspective when new understanding appears. That willingness requires intellectual humility, the ability to admit that your current view of reality may still be incomplete. And in a world where people increasingly build identities around being right, that humility has become rare. But protecting clear thinking requires it. The same principle appears in another modern habit that quietly damages the quality of thought: the obsession with busyness. Modern culture constantly rewards movement. People fill schedules until exhaustion, and then treat that exhaustion like evidence of importance.
We need
Ask
to leverage
someone
the
how they are
synergies
doing,
across the
and the answer
organizational
is usually
structure.
busy, spoken almost proudly.
The Q3 projections
as if
are
constant
entirely
activity proves
contingent.
value. But highly intelligent people learn to ask a different question. Is this movement actually producing progress? Or is it simply preventing reflection? Because busyness and productivity are not the same thing. In many cases, constant activity becomes a form of avoidance. When the mind is always occupied, there is no space left for deeper thinking. No time to ask whether the direction is correct, whether the effort matters, or whether the goals being chased still align with what the person truly wants. Endless stimulation keeps people moving fast enough to avoid confronting more difficult questions beneath the surface. But clarity rarely appears inside constant noise. It appears during stillness, during the quiet walk without distraction, the morning without screens, the silence most people instinctively rush to escape because stillness feels unfamiliar and unproductive. Highly intelligent people protect these moments carefully because they understand something essential. The quality of thinking depends on the conditions surrounding it. Clear thought requires focus, emotional regulation, patience, and space free from constant interruption. Intelligence is not about knowing everything or winning every argument. It is about protecting the mind from habits that slowly weaken its ability to think clearly. The people who think most deeply are often not the loudest, busiest, or most certain people in the room. They are the ones willing to slow down, tolerate uncertainty, question themselves honestly, and protect the stillness where real understanding finally has room to emerge.